Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.
Hello and welcome to our video contemplation of day signature 56. This frequency corresponds to the King of Hearts, the prime instinct to merge, and the noble role of blessing. It is represented by the Angels of Majesty and Enrichment.
Mm-hmm. So we have the 34th Angel of Majesty, who walks the pathway of empowerment to become the embodiment of strength. And then we have the 56th Angel of Enrichment, who walks the pathway of enjoyment to become the embodiment of decadence.
Ooh, yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That pathway of enjoyment may sound familiar to some of you. Mm-hmm. That's because it is the main theme for every one of these conversations and the sole theme that the angels as a collective seek to describe, to define, and to encourage from all these different angles. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited to be here. It may also be uniquely familiar in that yesterday's noble role was the noble role of enjoyment. The Queen of Hearts represents the noble role of enjoyment. Her King of Hearts represents the noble role of blessing, but enjoyment follows through. Mm-hmm. So we're on a familiar theme, and it will never, ever get old, and it could not be more significant today than it has ever been. You know, it's very prevalent for us, and so we're going to be repeating much of what you've already heard, but in some cases, I think from new angles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we kind of mentioned this before, but this particular king and queen represent the center of the tarot. Mm-hmm. They're the core. And it's really perfect to be able to see that enjoyment is in both the king and the queen. Mm-hmm. We see that word in both of them.
Yes.
And that also just puts further emphasis on how important it is.
Yes. We have continued to be surprised by the prolific emphasis placed on this theme of enjoyment. Mm-hmm. It never gets old and it never stops surprising just how simple, how accessible, and yet how deeply profound this single subject is. So we harp on it because we're still learning to give it that place of prominence in our own life. And because we know, based on our experience at this point, that there is nothing more significant than this. And that somehow all of the other subjects we might wish to touch on or might feel concern over are, in every case, directly connected to this underlying or central theme. Mm-hmm. So I like what you said about the King and the Queen of Hearts. Mm-hmm. We had mentioned in our last conversation that the Queen is dead center of the four sets of virtues. The Queen and the King we consider to be held together as one at the center of the tarot, because the king and the queen of any set of virtues work together as a unit. Mm-hmm. This came as a complete surprise to us on the one hand, because it's not anything we've ever heard about or learned about or even considered in the context of traditional tarot. But it's also not a surprise when we consider that these themes are representative of something we encounter within ourselves and within real life. Mm-hmm. So within ourselves, of course, we have the masculine and feminine polarities unified to express as a complete or whole individual. Mm-hmm. And in relationship, in particular our relationship, we love to think in terms of the queen and the king as being a team, mm-hmm. a partnership, ultimately being one unit. We jokingly refer to ourselves as B unit because mm-hmm. we're the Brainards. Mm-hmm. But that's what we're finding here as well.
Yeah, we often find with you and I that I might have a vision that Timothy then executes on. It's like mm-hmm. this really obvious way that we can recognize the masculine, feminine, like how they work together as a team.
Yeah, the masculine, feminine polarities, I think, is what the typical or technical term would be. I don't feel them to be polarities necessarily. To me, they're far more fluid than that, but that's exactly right. Oftentimes we'll find that you are embodying this very feminine, yin-like, receptive, or even imaginative way of achieving a vision or perceiving of reality, which then inspires me to get to work, to take action, to move in a certain way. And that's extremely appropriate. And it's very much the same thing we find here in the tarot over and over again in each of these sets of king-queen pairs. In this case, the queen represented the noble role of enjoyment. She had one thing to do, to enjoy her life, her king, her kingdom, her world. And now the king represents what comes of that. The king represents, in this case, not so much something like, not an execution on the theme of enjoyment per se, but an emanation that emerges as a result of.
Yeah, it's almost like a natural embodiment of blessing. He is blessing. Yeah,
that's exactly what I see. The King of Hearts is the very personification of blessing. His presence is a blessing. And he moves in such a way as to bless others. So it is very active in this regard. The Queen is very active about the work of enjoyment. The work, we put in quotation marks. The King is very active about the work of blessing. Again, work in quotation marks. His emphasis is on extending that joy beyond himself in such a way that it can touch others. And so this is a little more active, a little more face forward, whereas the Queen's is very internally focused. The King is very externally focused. And just to be exceptionally clear, these roles are not separate from one another. They exist within us. We have this inner imperative to enjoy our lives. And if we can simply permit that, we have this expressive imperative that moves that joy from within us outward to touch others. The warmth of your joy touches the world around you in a meaningful way, and you become a blessing to the world. That's what this king is doing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. What
do you think about the prime instinct to merge here?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, in the context of what we just described, this prime instinct to merge seems pretty well on the surface. They're meant to work together. Do you see anything beyond that?
I was seeing that, which, like you said, it was pretty on the surface, but also this prime instinct to merge comes from the 10th prime, which is destiny.
Yeah.
So it's also this instinct to merge with your destiny. And our destiny is enjoyment. That's what I see. I see it being almost this extremely obvious one-track mind goal, if you will.
Destiny and purpose are not too dissimilar. They're basically the same thing. Your purpose is expressed along this trajectory of your destiny. They are the same thing in this regard, and the angels have told us the purpose of your life is enjoyment. What I like about this idea of destiny is that the king and the queen, again, are meant to merge as one within every one of us. So imagine, for example, that you set about the work of being a blessing through effort or ambition, or even well-intended moralistic leaning. You believe that you're meant to be a blessing to others, and so you attempt to be a blessing. There's nothing wrong with this at all. But consider the difference between that and allowing for this merging of being a blessing with your natural enjoyment, and consider the difference in effort applied. When you permit yourself to enjoy and you become so filled with light and love and enjoyment, pleasure, excitement, thrill, when you're literally glowing from all of these very natural things, you become a blessing by virtue of being yourself in that moment. You don't have to attempt anything. You're not trying to be a blessing. The fact of the matter is, this is the greater blessing. It holds the higher impact. We get to release the need to execute. We're using these words very carefully when we use them. The king executes on the queen's vision sort of thing. That's only true within a certain parameter. Ultimately, each of these roles is your own. And the role of executing on something is actually a natural extension of the first step. This is how the yin-yang balance works. The sun is not trying hard to shed light. The sun is being a sun. Therefore, it sheds light. It produces warmth.
Yes.
That's what a sun does. And when you light up, you do the same. It's no different. You don't have to try. I think that's really important to understand that about these noble roles in particular. The word role can be misleading in some cases. Okay, this is where I'm supposed to do. No, this is what happens when you permit yourself to be. Then you're truly fulfilling that role by virtue of your existence, not through some effort to earn it.
Mm-hmm. And I think bringing it back to the hearts, which is the particular virtue we're in now, you can feel your way to that place of knowing when you're trying too hard, it's going to feel like effort. Yeah. If it's effortless, it will feel easy. It will feel like that natural enjoyment won't be something you're attaining to. It'll be right on the surface.
Yeah, it will feel so natural and so much a part of you that you will wonder if it is in fact possible that you could be a blessing because you're not trying to be.
Right.
But of course, when you look around you, you're going to see that your light ignites the same light in others and that your enjoyment is contagious. So I find it interesting. I think the reason this idea or example rather comes to mind is because often in our attempts to bless others, we might move in a way that is lacking in enjoyment or in some way sacrificing our own desires or our own enjoyment on behalf of that attempt. And I guess what we're trying to communicate is that while that is all well and good, and while those intentions are very innocent, they're not entirely effective, in large part because they're depletive. There's only so much of you that you can move in this way before there's nothing left for you to give. You've sacrificed so much. You're plumbing a finite depth when you move in this way. What the King and the Queen of Hearts work to show us is that it is possible to plumb an infinite well simply by following the call of your own enjoyment and allowing for that to reach out and touch others. Again, I know we're harping on a theme that we've talked about in very similar terms basically every time we've shown up here, but that's because it could not be more important.
Yeah.
We've looked at the King and the Queen pair.
Mm-hmm.
We've reminded you that we're in the world of the hearts, which is all about feeling, which is, again, something we're going to return to many times as we continue these conversations. Let's talk about, we talked about destiny, we talked about merging. Let's talk about the angels.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Angel of Majesty who walks the pathway of empowerment to become the embodiment of strength itself. Yeah. And we have the Angel of Enrichment who walks the pathway of enjoyment to become the embodiment of decadence. Now, the first thing to notice is that we've met with this 56th angel.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I believe, our second session.
Yep.
So there's a long-form transcript of our conversation with the Angel of Enrichment available on our website at the64angels.com, completely free of charge. You can read the whole transcript. You can download and print it and take notes. As always, we invite you to consider this angel's presence in this day's signature as an explicit invitation to go and study that conversation, especially because this particular angel burst onto the scene. Mm-hmm. It was so excited to be speaking with us. It had so much to say, and it managed to say it in such a concise and direct format that we have never stopped returning to it even to this day and learning through it as a result.
Mm-hmm.
The angel spoke about the primary significance of enjoyment. That's what it spent the entire time speaking to us about. The major quotes that we like to use on this subject came from this angel in particular.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely time for anyone viewing this to take the time to go and read that. And if you just read it yesterday, read it again today. It doesn't get old. It only penetrates deeper every time you return to it.
Yeah.
So that's the first piece. We consider that to be important. Next, we start to draw some connections between these angels. Is there anything right out the gate that you feel excited to share?
Well, I think, these pairings are always meant to work together.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, when I see this Angel of Enrichment with the Angel of Majesty, I want to really understand how are they working together? And because the Angel of Enrichment and its pathway of enjoyment is so central, so important, we know this, it makes a lot of sense that it would be paired with an angel that is the embodiment of strength.
Yeah.
Because if there's anything that you need to summon your strength for, it's to make sure that your enjoyment is prominent. And so I think with the 34th angel in particular, this Angel of Majesty who walks the pathway of empowerment, what you're empowering yourself to do on this pathway is to choose enjoyment. Mm-hmm. And if there is anything that seems to be in the way of that, an obstacle, a challenge, you are empowering yourself to choose enjoyment, to choose goodness, to choose anything that is, if you're feeling the opposite, which we know at times we do, we feel, we might feel really, really, insert a negative emotion, like anything.
Yeah.
The only way to kind of overcome that, the only logical and necessary choice is to empower yourself to choose its opposite and to choose enjoyment instead. And that does require strength. You embody strength when you're doing that, because we have to be really honest with ourselves at times and realize that that is a choice and we have to make it. And it's the only choice to make.
Yeah. You're 100% right. And it is true that there are times where that seems nearly impossible. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a circumstantial situation where something has happened and you feel either victimized by it or pressured in some way, and it's like there's no way out of this horrible feeling, or whether it's relational, or whether it's anxiety of some sort connected to any number of things, career, relationship, finances. There are all these different ways that we've experienced the squeeze, I think, in our lives. And over again, what Laura has just described reveals itself as the only true question in any moment. Again, we meet the two paths of wonder or worry. And we're invited over and over again to make this particular choice in spite of what appears to be, in spite of what might be observable in the moment, in spite of what happens. This does take strength. There's a reason that when we first began working with these tarot cards, we had a different name for the 56th card altogether. Mm-hmm. Now, this was before we had even begun to understand how these cards were working. We had yet to discover the categorical distinctions between the prime instincts, the noble roles, the angel essence, and the virtues. Mm-hmm. We thought perhaps we were looking for like a name for every card. Yeah. And so we had named this card Lionheart. Mm-hmm. Lionheart is a match to the frequency of 56. And it was like, that's the King of Hearts. He's Lionheart.
Yeah, there's a few other matches for this 56th card, word matches that I think really describe the King of Hearts. Lionheart was one of them. You also, obviously, Blessing was another match, perfect match. But you also have I Am the King, Key of Power.
It's great.
Maturity, Saturn, Shepherd, Reconnect, True Love, and Water God, actually.
Wow.
Which is really quite perfect for hearts, which we would connect to the element of water.
Yeah, that's right.
King, God.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, I hadn't even realized that, or I had forgotten. Good job.
Thank you.
So it requires that lion heart to choose enjoyment. It sounds pretty kind of surprising and silly, even on a level, that would be the case. Like, who wouldn't? But we all know what it's like to believe that we need to sacrifice this most fundamental part of ourselves in order to be accepted, in order to be acceptable, in order to achieve some apparently more important or even more moral intent. What we're finding here, of course, is that we were misled in considering our lives in that way. So it is going to require something special within you, something primal, a power, a strength within you to overcome those ideas, to overcome those agreements, and to begin to meet your life in a new way that puts this first. Understanding that this is the only way life gets to move through you. This is the only way to get out of your own way and allow that life to move you. And it does require self-honesty. I like that these pathways of enjoyment and empowerment are paired, because I can't help but see this almost like a figure eight, a symbiotic loop of exchange. There's a logic that plays out in either direction. No one but you can empower yourself to permit your own enjoyment. That is all you. There it moves in one direction. But amazingly enough, when you do permit your enjoyment, when you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and decide that come hell or high water, and in spite of all these other things, you're going to choose to move toward what you love, even if it makes no sense at all, even if it bankrupts you. You decide to do this and to let it be prominent. When you permit your enjoyment, you are actually empowering the fullest possible expression, not only of your own story, your own destiny, but also of yourself. Wow. Or rather, you permit life to fully express itself through you as, in my case, a Timothy, in Laura's case, a Laura, and in your case, a you. That's what we're learning to do here, and that's why these paths are connected.
Wow. Really?
Majesty and enrichment, same thing. What is more majestic than the sun? That's what the lion heart is. That's all I see.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we are. Enrichment has been defined for us. The way of enrichment, according to this angel of enrichment, the way of enrichment is this. And this is a direct quote. Follow the call of enjoyment. Savor and share what you find. Follow the call of enjoyment. Savor and share what you find. Okay, break that down. This is the way of enrichment. So in defining this for us, the angel was telling us what it means to express this theme of enrichment. It was also teaching us about the pathway. You'll notice that it's twofold. First, follow the call of your own enjoyment. That's an inner experience. It reminds us of the Queen.
Yes.
But there's a second part. Savor and share what you find. So in the first part, as you're permitting yourself to enjoy, as you're following the call of your own enjoyment, perhaps for the first time ever, this consciously, with this much determination, you are permitting this inner self-motivated movement to begin to unfold. This is personal enrichment. You are enriching yourself. You are enriching your own life, and you savor that. Yeah. And then what do? You share it. Savor and share what you find.
Yeah, so that act of savoring and sharing is the King of Hearts and the noble role of blessing. That's the same thing that we're talking about here.
When you savor your own life, you literally light up. That's what the Queen does. The light that emerges as a result of this, sharing what you find in this context, that's the King's work. The King permits himself to be excited about what he's excited about. It pours out of him. You can't miss it when you've got you're viewing it right now. This is it. You're witnessing it. We are savoring all of this and our own life so completely that we've automatically, inevitably, naturally needed to pour it back out into you. That's a gift. It's not an effort. We're not sacrificing a thing. This is as enjoyable for us as if we were sitting alone on the couch or on one of our walks having this conversation, if not more so, because there is a special joy about the sharing. So again, this loop of empowerment, this loop of enjoyment, and now you can see the loop of enrichment as first we internalize that richness, we enrich ourselves, we enrich our own lives, and then we enrich the lives of others by sharing what we find. Amazingly enough, come tomorrow when we meet the 57, the prime instinct is to share. Yeah. Unless I'm mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's to share. It's the 9th prime.
Okay, yes.
So here we're emerging, and that's allowing for this all to kind of congeal. We permit ourselves to have such a rich life that it overflows its bounds and touches others. And that's what the sharing is about. The king is a model of this, and tomorrow the knight will follow suit because, of course, the knight is learning from the king and takes this off into a completely unique direction. But you can see how these themes play into one another and how the flow from one day to the next, it's all woven. The pathways, obviously, we can see how they're connected. The expressions or names of these angels, we can see how they're connected. There's nothing more majestic than someone who is naturally and authentically enriching the world by virtue of their joy. There is just nothing more special than that. Nothing warmer, nothing brighter, and nothing more impactful. I'm not describing something apart from you. I'm not describing something you someday, maybe if you're super lucky, meditate for long enough to become a part of. I'm not talking about transcending your human experience. I'm talking about the opposite. This is the life of the heart. This is the life of sensitivity. This is the life of coming so close to your own life that you actually feel something. This is about becoming more you, becoming more human, becoming more connected to your human life. Do you see? This is the life of the heart. And then we arrive at the embodiment.
Decadence.
And
strength.
There it is. That strength that is required, that strength that emerges as a result of your willingness to permit your enjoyment, is the very, very thing that produces a life of decadence. This is not something you're doing or producing. It's something that is a part of you. It's an embodiment. You are it and it surrounds you. Decadence has been defined by the angels as well. To quote, true decadence is enjoyment, exclamation point. Mm-hmm. Couldn't make it more direct or more simple.
Right. And for anybody who might feel a little intimidated by the word decadence, mm-hmm. because of, for whatever reason, we know it's an evocative word. The 56th Angel of Enrichment went on to say that true decadence is a reverent, powerful act.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And this theme was continued and actually delivered to us today in our virtual oracle, mm-hmm. with one of our favorite frequencies, 222, 222.
222.
And it was the quote saying, true decadence is a reverent spiritual act. Mm-hmm. Think about that. This is a really fun way to reclaim the word decadence.
Definitely.
Not as some hedonistic, selfish, kind of mindless reaching for any pleasure.
Or consumptive.
Yeah, this isn't a consumptive experience. It's not an exploitative experience. And it's not a thoughtless experience. This embodiment of decadence is the feeling of enjoyment. You embody the essence of true decadence when you permit yourself to enjoy. You know that feeling. Every single one of us does. It emerges when you're taking a shower and the feeling of the water on your hair and face and skin is just warm and vitalizing, and it's like you can breathe deeper in that moment and the rest of the world kind of fades into the background and you just enjoy the feeling of the water on your skin. You know it when you're raking leaves this time of year. It's autumn here in New York, and you have that smell, the rich earth and the decaying leaves and the moisture and the dirt, and it's just something delicious. Mm-hmm. For us. You have your own version of this. Mm-hmm. What I'm trying to say is we're not talking about quitting your job and getting to work in some other direction necessarily. This is so close to home that you'll miss it if you're not very attentive right now in this moment. Enjoyment could not be more simple. Where's the quote about the simple path? Was that this angel? The simple act of enjoyment?
It doesn't ring any bells to me.
Okay. We came across it the other day. It could have been in the frequency tables.
Or it could have been the Angel of Attraction.
Yeah, so the angel that we met with after this one in the third session, the Angel of Attraction, jumped right in and kind of communicated all of the same themes. It was all about enjoyment for that angel too. In fact, mm-hmm. I would encourage you to read both. They read perfectly as a pair. Mm-hmm. The second session and the third session. This you're highlighting something. I think this is very significant. Mm-hmm. Go. Why don't you read it? You found it.
Okay, so this angel said, I just wanted to highlight this because it's really, I think captures.
It's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, it's what Timothy was just talking about, but this is a direct quote from the angel session. Enjoyment is ceremony. Enjoyment is a sacred act, no matter what it may be. Any small act of authentic enjoyment applies. This is thanksgiving. This is the reverent act.
Why is it the reverent act? The angel answered that question too. A few lines before it says, when you enjoy absolutely, You honor life in the act. Oh, and there it is.
There it is.
Simple enjoyment is life's most important foundation.
Yes.
There's no beating around the bush here.
Yeah.
So simple enjoyment is life's most important foundation. When you enjoy absolutely, you honor life in the act. We've talked about this before. We'll touch on it again right now. If someone gives you a gift, the most honorable thing you can do with that gift is to savor it, is to consider it precious, is to enjoy it. You honor the gift you've been given when you enjoy it. Yeah, you do not honor it by putting it on a shelf. You do not honor it by attempting to pay that person back for whatever the value of the gift was. You don't earn it. This is a grace. A gift has been given. Your life is a fact. You're in it. Honor it. Mm-hmm. How? Enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Enjoy it absolutely. Hold nothing back. When you do this, this is Thanksgiving. This is the reverent act. Wow.
Yeah.
And any small act of authentic enjoyment applies. I love that. That's what I was trying to say. Mm-hmm. We tend to take these ideas into the stratosphere and almost disqualify ourselves from reaching them because it feels like something we might do someday or might get at eventually. Right now in this moment, if you're watching this video, you're watching it because you want to. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If you're not, do something else. If you are, recognize that you are in the frequency of what we're describing. That this very moment of feeling, whatever you're feeling, if it's good, is the embodiment of decadence. Mm-hmm. And is the embodiment of strength. Because rather than convincing yourself that this is a waste of time or that this supposedly small feeling of enjoyment doesn't mean much and you have more important things to be doing, as you choose to remain here and to allow this to mean as much as the angels are telling us it does, that is embodying strength. This is not a forced or practiced or artificial strength. You're not building muscle. You're doing something far more significant. You are becoming the embodiment of strength by permitting the embodiment of decadence. Mm-hmm. And all of this is tied up in what we've seen here in this angel session. It couldn't be simpler.
Yeah.
We could talk about this for endless hours. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take anything more than a sentence to say what needs to be said, though.
Right.
Have we missed any of the key points that we were excited to make? What about Heliodor? What did you see here?
Well, so some of the angels have claimed mineral allies.
Yeah.
And so this is actually one of the angels that has claimed a stone. Mm-hmm. And it is the 56th?
No, it's the 34th angel.
The 34th angel.
Of Majesty. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the 34th angel of Majesty has actually claimed Heliodor. Mm-hmm. And that is really timely because we've been in this energy of telling you about Heliodor. Yep. We did it yesterday. And so it's perfect placement for Heliodor to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the very least, it presents another one of these invitations, these opportunities to go and read those conversations with Heliodor if you're inspired to. Those can be found on timothybrainerd.com for the time being. You click on conversations, you'll see a picture of a gem, and then follow through to the Heliodor conversations. There are 3. Mm-hmm. Scroll down and begin with the first.
Yep.
And if you wish, kind of work your way up through them. But what Heliodor had to say perfectly ties into this. We've mentioned it in the past few days. Again, in brief, Heliodor was telling us all about how the sun functions and how that sun is alive at the center of us. Mm-hmm. That's what's happening here.
Yes.
So bring that into the day signature as well, into the day's investigations. Enjoy following the call of your enjoyment. And when you do, and as you do, don't forget the other half. That's what this day is all about. You permit your enjoyment as the queen. You share what you find as the king. Be a blessing, but allow that blessing to fall out of you, to pour out of you, to be the most natural and authentic thing that it could possibly be. Realize that when you're excited, that when you're turned on, that when you're lit up, you are radiating, and that radiance is the blessing. Know that there's nothing you need to do other than this.
Right.
That brings all of our biggest questions to such a fine point of response. Mm-hmm. And if you think that this doesn't apply to certain big questions, play it out. You'll find, as we have, that every major question we have about ourselves, about life, and about what we're meant to be doing in life, they're all resolved when we really allow ourselves to grow some roots into what we're being shown here. Give it some real personal contemplative opportunity in your own world, and allow this theme of enjoyment to become such a great part of you that you begin to live it. It is the pathway, and that's true for all of us. Mm-hmm. So that's what we get to do today. That's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. That's what we invite you to join us in doing. And we'll look forward to seeing you again when we record our contemplation for the next angel.
Yes.
Well, the next card and its angels.
Yes.
So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We celebrate your presence as always, and we'll see you again very soon. Goodbye for now.
Bye.